What's going on, everybody? My name is Anomaly. If you don't already know, AN0MALY. You can follow me at Instagram at Dream Rare, DREAM Rare on Instagram, Dream Rare. You can follow me on Twitter at Legendary Energy, and you can follow me on Facebook. Just search Anomaly AN0MALY. And I want to talk about this news that is not getting a lot of press because it's very, very important, and it shatters a lot of false narratives that have been being spread throughout the last few weeks. And this is the news that the United States military shot down a Syrian aircraft in Syria, and the Russian government warned the United States because, of course, Russia is collaborating with Syria. They like Bashar al-Assad, who is the president of Syria, and they're working with Syria, while the United States, under Obama and Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, they were increasing tensions towards Syria. And this is huge because this shatters a lot of narratives and asks a lot of questions that nobody will be asking. And that is the fact that the biggest narrative in the United States, in the world, is that Russia hacked the election and that Donald Trump is colluding with Russia. There are millions of people who believe it because there's a lot of conspiracy theorists who have been given platforms like Rachel Maddow, CNN. A lot of the big news sources people think are credible have actually been pushing completely false, fabricated, fake stories for over a year now. And this, I would think, would shatter the narrative to any logical person, because the United States military is shooting down Syrian aircrafts. This is exactly what Hillary Clinton wanted. This is exactly why millions of people voted for Donald Trump, because they thought he wasn't going to do this. Millions of people that were Bernie Sanders supporters or environmentalists or whatever, logical people, they voted for Donald Trump because they thought he was not going to shoot down Syrian aircrafts and that he was going to collaborate with Syria and Russia as opposed to fight them. This whole war is most likely over a pipeline in Syria that Russia wants control of, US wants control of. Anyway, I mean, the sitting president of the United States, Donald Trump, his military shot down a Syrian aircraft, which is nearly equivalent to shooting down a Russian aircraft. It's essentially starting war with Syria. It is starting war with the Syrian government, who is being aided and funded by Russia. So this is almost like a war is starting between the United States and Russia. Very big deal. But no news sources are talking about it. Doesn't that make you question? I mean, they've blamed Russia and Trump for a year working together, but they're actually fighting each other. That's how big of liars that the mainstream media is. They've convinced millions of people that anybody who tells the truth is Russian, and Trump's Russian, and conservatives are Russian. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders supporters are Russian too, progressives are Russian. Meanwhile, we're at war with Russia. And there's three options here. There's going to be a lot of unhappy Trump supporters because a lot of people, regardless of the mainstream media narrative, liked Trump because he's different and he's not starting a war with Syria. That's what he campaigned on, not starting a war with Syria. And there's three options. One is that Trump lied to everybody and this was his plan all along. My personal opinion, highly unlikely. The second one was Trump had a change of heart and he was convinced over the chemical weapons that Syria is really terrible. And it could be a possibility that they did those chemical weapons. That's the second. But the third most likely thing that millions of people have been talking about for the past 20 years and no one listens is the president of the United States does not have as much control as people think. A lot of people call it a conspiracy. They call people crazy. But, I mean, there's been a lot of intelligent people who have been like, you know what? The president doesn't have as much power as people think he does. If Trump comes in without the people's support and wants to change all these things, he's being blocked. He's being blocked by the media. He's being blocked by Democrats. He's being blocked by John McCain and Republicans, the intelligence agencies. The U.S. president doesn't have as much power as they claim to or they think that. Same with Obama. You know, there were a lot of campaign promises that Obama made, but when he got into power, he probably realized, you know what? I can't even do these things because I don't really pull the strings. I'm essentially just one person. So that's the reason a lot of people still like Donald Trump, because they feel like he could shift it up. But we're going to have to get over this Trump colluded with Russia conspiracy, because as you're saying that Trump colluded with Russia, there's no evidence. He's fighting Russia. The U.S. government's fighting Russia, and he's fighting the U.S. government. Republicans are fighting Democrats. the whole narrative that we've been fed, and I've said this since October of 2016. It's 2017. I've said it since October. The Russian narrative's a lie. They wanted war with Russia. Trump didn't want war with Russia, or he said that. And all they've done was convince millions of people, liberals, progressives, conservatives, whoever watches these networks, convince them that Donald Trump's colluding with Russia. And the opposite is actually true. He's now fighting Russia, literally starting a war with Russia. And there's millions of people who watch Rachel Maddow and CNN and New York Times who live in a reality where they think, oh yeah, Trump's working with Russia as he's shooting down aircrafts that they're allied to. It's bizarre. Only in America can the news tell you that the United States president's working with Russia when he's actually fighting Russia. Only in America could the news convince you, and I will say only in America because it happens in North Korea, it happens in a lot of countries, but only in America can the news convince you that the new president is working with Russia when the last president and the last Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, gave 20% of the United States uranium to Russia. So the people pointing at Trump saying he's working with Russia, they actually worked with Russia. This is facts. The people pointing the finger at Trump saying he's working with Russia, they're the ones who worked with Russia. They gave Russia all this ammunition, and then they started a war with Russia. And now Trump's in power saying, I'm going to try to get along with them, but he doesn't really have control. He's being tied down and fought, or he's been convinced, lied to. Who knows what's happening? But as the narrative collapses, as they have a whole council, they've literally established an entire council to try to figure out if Donald Trump and his administration is working with Russia, but they were the ones working with Russia, and they're fighting Russia. This is bizarre. I've said it since October. It's obvious to me, but at what point do people stop pushing the narrative that the current administration is working with Russia when it's news? You could Google it. It happened yesterday. It's gonna keep happening. The U.S. is fighting Syria, and Syria is working with Russia. So essentially, the U.S. is fighting Syria and Russia. Trump campaigned on not fighting with Russia, not fighting with Syria, but now he's doing it. Either he got convinced, he got swallowed by the people who really run the country, which people who watch Rachel Maddow, they'll come to this page and say, it's a conspiracy, it's Russian, there's no way, the president has total power. But if that's the case, then why didn't Obama do all of the things he said he was going to do? There's an interview with Putin where he says, I don't care who's president because I know that the United States is not run by the president. And I'm sorry, I don't care that it's Putin. It's true. Obama ran on the platform of I'm gonna stop Guantanamo Bay. He didn't do it because he probably doesn't have the power to do it. The president does not have all of this unlimited power like people think. There's checks, there's balances, and there's agencies and world leaders and billionaires, corporations who really pull a lot of the strings and have over hierarchical power over the United States president. So I would imagine that news sources like CNN and MSNBC and New York Times and Washington Post, I would imagine that they'd apologize to their audiences and say, you know what, I'm sorry for saying for a year now that Trump is working with Russia because his administration is actually blowing up aircrafts that are linked with Russia. And this should be more proof that there's something else going on, because Hillary Clinton campaign said I would shoot down Syrian aircrafts. That's why I was turned off by Hillary Clinton, among a million other things. She said, I'm going to shoot down Syrian aircrafts in a no-fly zone. That's what I'm going to do if I'm president. And Donald Trump said, whoa. I don't want to shoot down Syrian aircrafts. I want to work with Russia and work with Syria and try to get along with them. It sounded more reasonable. But now, Donald Trump's military is shooting down Syrian aircrafts. That's nearly equivalent to shooting down a Russian aircraft. So for the 100th time, which I've been saying since October, it should start sinking in to people who've been getting lied to all year by CNN, MSNBC, even NPR, everybody. Anybody who's been following the Russia conspiracy is a total liar. And this is not an opinion, it's a fact, because let's look at the facts. Let's look at reality. I'm not a huge Trump fan. I've said this a million times. It's not that I think he's the all-bearer of truth and honesty and justice and freedom, but he's just better than these liars. And I mean, let's look at the facts. You have the past Secretary of State and the past administration, regardless of how much money the Clinton Foundation got and who decided to leverage the deal, that's what they lie about. They're like, oh, the uranium got sold, but we don't even know who did it. Okay, the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, they sold 20% of the United States uranium to Russia. That's more than anything they found on Trump. They sold uranium to Russia. Now we're shooting down Russian aircrafts. So the facts, the logic, the reality of the situation, regardless of how you feel about policies, is the Obama administration sold uranium to Russia. It's facts. It's reality. It happened. The Trump administration, there's no evidence of collusion. There's a year of investigation, a year of reports, a year of lies. There's very flimsy stuff. Oh, Michael Flynn had a phone call. This didn't happen. Let's see. Uranium selling to Russia from the Obama Clinton administration to Trump. There might have been a phone call, but he's shooting down Russian aircrafts. He's actually fighting his administration, his United States of America, regardless of who's pulling the strings. His administration's fighting Russia. As the news says, Trump's working with Russia. We don't have any evidence yet. It's been a year, but hang tight. Come back to Rachel Maddow's show, because I'm going to lie to you more. We're a day away from getting Russia evidence. I swear, we'll find it soon. As they're telling you that, just hang on, We're going to impeach Trump. We're going to find Russia evidence. We got you. Trump's America is actually fighting Russia. You can't make this stuff up. There's a war beginning. There's a war starting. I'm optimistic. I don't think it's going to escalate to levels of pure insanity and world destruction, but there's a war happening between the U.S. and Syria, who is linked to Russia. So Syria is basically Russia at this point. United States is fighting Russia, and the news continues to lie and tell you that Trump is working with Russia when his administration is fighting Russia. Literally the exact opposite. And the past administration, Hillary Clinton and Obama, sold uranium to Russia. So the real people who work with Russia and profit off Russia and make money off Russia and do speeches in Russia is the Clintons and the media sources that tell you that Trump's working with Russia. Those are the people that work with Russia. Those are who get, the facts are there, that they're getting millions of dollars for selling uranium to Russia. And with Trump, he's fighting Russia. He's shooting down aircrafts. I'm not happy about it. This is what I wanted not to happen, is Trump shooting down Syrian aircrafts. But it couldn't be more obvious at this point. I mean, to me, it's been obvious since October. But some people are a little slower. We gotta, that fails, that's a fake story, that's a fake story, that's a fake story, that's a fake story, that's a fake story. I mean, what more do people need? Like the audience of Rachel Maddow and CNN and, people who follow Hillary Clinton and Maxine Waters on Twitter. What more do you need? It's like Donald Trump, and I don't think this is gonna happen. I don't want this to happen. I have, friends who live in Russia who come to the United States. I have Russian friends. I assume most people who are cultured do. Say the U.S., if we started a full-on war with Russia and we're like dropping bombs in Russia, I feel like Maxine Waters and Rachel Maddow would still be like, yeah, but he's still working with Russia, even though he's shooting down Syrian aircrafts and all this going on. I mean, I think he still might have worked with, there's no end game, because these people are just manipulators and liars of the highest form. And their strategy is to call everybody else manipulators and liars. I don't even want to be here pointing the finger. I don't want to point the finger at them. I'm pointing the finger at the facts. Look at reality. I'm not even a fan of anybody, but it's like one administration sold uranium to Russia. Another administration's complaining about the deep state, saying he doesn't have control. And then the U.S. military is bombing Syrian aircrafts. This is massive. This should be a major story. This should be on all news sources. This should be on Rachel Maddow saying, hey, you know what? I'm actually wrong. Trump's not working with Russia. He's fighting Russia. I was lying all year. But they'll never do that. How is this not mainstream news? How is this not everywhere? Because it shatters the illusion that they've created that the Trump administration is working with Russia. And so many people hate Donald Trump that they're willing to believe anything negative about him. I'm not a huge Hillary Clinton fan. I'm not a huge Joe Biden fan, but I'm not going to believe any news about him with no evidence just because I don't like Hillary Clinton. If someone says Hillary Clinton drank all my milk, she stole a milk carton and, traveled to Iowa, I'm not going to tweet about it and be like, oh my God, Hillary Clinton's stealing all the milk. She's driving all over the country. If there's no evidence, just because I hate her doesn't mean I believe anything in opposition to her, it's just not true. I do heavily deep research. I look at all the facts and I make my decision, albeit I don't know the truth about everything, how it's not possible to, but it's based off facts and evidence and reality and multiple stories and this side and this side. I do a whole thing. People will believe anything. You say Trump peed on me. He peed on a bunch of prostitutes in Russia and he peed on himself and he filmed it. We're getting the evidence soon. People are like, oh my God, he must have peed on people. Like, they'll believe anything. Literally, if he's fighting Russia and they still believe that he's working with Russia, if he was working with Russia, he wouldn't be shooting down Syrian aircrafts. He would not. And to be honest, that would be okay. They're leading you to war. They're making you think if Trump doesn't start a war with Russia, he's working with Russia. I mean, what kind of logic is that? So if we get along with Syria and Russia, are a bunch of people who are so-called liberals going to freak out because the world's at peace and we're not fighting with Russia and Syria? It's bananas. It's literally at the point now, and I don't like to hurl out insults or titles, but who are the people believing this? Because it's not conservatives. It's not a lot of progressives. Half the progressives, Bernie Sanders supporters, think Russia's hacking everything, and the other half are very logical and don't believe it. So who are the people that continue to fuel these social media accounts, releasing fake stories? Follow Glenn Greenwald. He's very great on Twitter. He's probably one of the best journalists in America. Glenn Greenwald. He works for The Intercept. He was big on a lot of things. He doesn't like Trump. He's afraid of Trump. He thinks Trump can be dangerous, but he's not a liar. So when he talks about things, he's been saying all year, listen, it's a conspiracy. It's totally made up. And when he says that, he gets attacked. Oh, you're working with Russia, Glenn Greenwald. Yeah, one of our best journalists in America is working with Russia because he's telling the truth about what's going on. It's bananas. So anybody, any side, I implore you to study what's really going on in the Middle East, because it looks like, once again, that the President of the United States does not have as much power as people think that he has. The war is accelerating just as it would have with Hillary Clinton. They're using the news as a giant smokescreen distraction, so we can't talk about war. We can't talk about the war on drugs. We can't have conversations. We can't love each other. We can't come to a point where all races, religions, and ethnicities really, have conversations and aren't afraid of each other or scared or convinced by their leader that everybody's out to get them. It's a whole smokescreen, because the last administration funded Russia, this administration's fighting Russia, and the news flips reality and says the complete opposite and blasts it out to millions of people who just believe it because they hate Trump. It's ridiculous, and this should be a cornerstone wake-up call to people, because Donald Trump's military, whether he's in control or not, is fighting in Syria. And I've said this a million times with Obama. I actually, as a person, I think Obama's great. He's very cool, he's very funny, but I say he's a puppet, not to be mean. It's just the truth. Obama probably came in and said, I want to change, I want to heal the world, I want to stop war. And the people in charge said, no, you're going to Somalia, you're going to Syria, you're going to Yemen, you're going to Afghanistan, you're going to Iraq, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's why I say these things about Obama, to wake up his supporters like, wow, we did go into all those countries. We are starting war all over the place, even with the great Obama. And even with the great Donald Trump, we're doing the same thing that Hillary Clinton would have wanted to do. So, if anything, I would say let's wake up to the fact that this whole Russia narrative is a conspiracy that they've been using to divide the left and the right, and to get the left to think that anybody who supports it is a right-wing conspiracy theorist. It's bananas, because reality is going to set in. Just as I said in October and November and December and January and February, regardless of how much you deny it, it's going to happen anyway, because it's happening every day. It's happening all around you. What's happening in Syria is happening in Syria. Doesn't matter how many times you lie about it. Doesn't matter how many times you watch Rachel Maddow and she tells you the opposite. It's going to happen. It's going to sink in, because it's reality. It's going on. The truth is the truth. It's unchangeable. So, much love to everybody. Once again, U.S. military shot down a Syrian aircraft. The Russians warned the United States, don't do that again, don't shoot down Syrian aircrafts. The war, the tension is increasing. Meanwhile, American citizens get dumber and dumber and dumber and more dumbed down by propaganda. That's the reality of the situation. My name is Anomaly. Check out my Instagram at DreamRare. My links if you want to donate and support the movement. I'll be back with more insight, more analysis. We're building, we're growing, meeting a lot of good people, good energy from all over the world. Thank you guys so much. Much blessings to you and your family. Thanks for being a part of it, and let's keep building and growing.